Hello and welcome to Press Corner here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. As most of you will know, on Press Corner we do a roundup of the week's news with fellow journalists from the Central and Eastern European region. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Borowski, who's an author with the Kyiv Post, Jakob Mielnik, who is a journalist with Wprost Magazine, and Jakub Biernat, a journalist with Belsat TV. Welcome, gentlemen. Hundreds of killer drones, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles have rained down on Israel overnight. Iran has taken responsibility for this indiscriminate attack on Israeli civilians by a country dedicated to the genocide of Israeli people and the destruction of the country. Meantime, global powers, including the US, Poland, Czechia and the UK, have promised to support Israel. The UK, Jordan and the US have confirmed that they have successfully downed some of these drones over the Iraq-Syria border area. Iran has claimed that this is retaliation for the killing of two high-ranking Iranian generals during an attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied responsibility for the attack. So let's start, gentlemen, by having a look at a short video clip. I think that's coming up now.
The Middle East is on edge as the shadow war between Israel and Iran intensifies, with recent events pushing the region closer to the brink of war. On Saturday night, Iran launched a multitude of drones and missiles toward Israel. This marks the first time ever that Iran officially fired on Israeli positions from its own territory. Since the start of the shadow war between the two, the majority of attacks on Israel were carried out by proxies, such as Lebanon's Hezbollah and Yemen's Houthis. Israeli air forces teamed up with the United States and United Kingdom to down the Iranian projectiles. On the other side of the conflict, Iranians across the country celebrated the government's decision to retaliate. They say the matter can now be deemed concluded. But this is just part of the ongoing hostilities. On Saturday, Iran captured a vessel linked to Israel in the Hormuz Strait, along with its 25 crew members. Earlier in the month, Israel shot 6 missiles at the Iranian embassy in Damascus, causing widespread destruction and the deaths of several individuals, including 2 Iranian generals. Israel's ally, the United States, has yet to condemn the aggression. Instead, it's vowed unwavering support.
We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed. Thank you very much.
The hostilities occurred amidst a period of increased Israeli activity in Syria, aimed at degrading Iran's transnational supply network for the terrorist group Hezbollah. Iran viewed the attack as a direct challenge to its sovereignty and swiftly vowed revenge. Since then, Lebanon's Hezbollah has been firing on Israeli targets in the Middle East. This crisis is rooted in a decades-long shadow war, with both nations engaging in covert operations. Iran's nuclear program remains a point of contention, with Israel fearing its potential for weaponization, despite Iran's insistence on its peaceful intent. As the situation unfolds, diplomatic efforts are in full swing. Iran's foreign minister has been engaging in talks with regional allies.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Jakub. A complex situation, lots of countries involved, lots of pieces in the jigsaw puzzle. Let's start with your overall picture of what's going on and where it might lead.
Well, my impression is that Iran has made a mistake in terms of strategical assessment. Before this attack, we've seen Israel isolated, widely criticized by the closest allies, including United States and Biden administration. with the ongoing American discussion on blocking or stopping military aid to Israel, and with the administration reluctant to give substantial support to Israeli operation to Gaza. After this attack, we see U.S., as President Biden said, ironclad supporting Israel, taking part in defense of Israeli airspace, and we also see the reinvigoration of broader coalition, which was about to be formulated before Iran organized Hamas operation in Israel on the 7th of October. It was designed to stop the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, mutual recognition and starting in normal diplomatic and political and economic relations between those two countries. And last night we've seen not only Americans and UK aircrafts and military helping Israel, but we've seen also Jordanian air forces, Saudi Arabian air forces defending Israeli airspace. So now we have a situation in which common sense has shifted from criticizing Israel to more sympathetic approach, because no one wants a regional war in Middle East.
Right.
Because the consequences of this regional war can be much wider and can complicated the situation on different fronts, including Ukraine, relations of U.S. with China, which is behind Iran. Russia is behind Iran actions.
Yes, countries which are very often called rogue states. Now, I'll come to you if I may. Adam, we see here Iran fires some 300 projectiles, yes, in total. I saw an interesting headline in the Guardian newspaper, which where is it? There we go. Yes, there it says, after Iran's attack on Israel, further escalation must be stopped. I just wonder how you can escalate further than 300 projectiles being indiscriminately fired at your country, and many of them, if they get through, of course, would hit civilian populations. What's your opinion? Is there an escalation that could result?
Well, of course, that depends on what Israel does, right?
Yeah.
That's the main factor here. On one hand, Israel cannot show weakness, of course, but on the other hand, a response could lead to a serious escalation. Yes, so this is the key. And of course, countries who are warned by Iran that, allowing airspace for, Israel will have consequences for these countries as well. So, yeah, it's interesting in itself that there were 300 or more drones, and apparently 99% was intercepted. So in terms of, efficacy, it's really, really low. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was that we are taking this to another level. This is unprecedented on Iranian part, and perhaps that was the idea.
Right.
We are taking this to another level, that we are now crossing the threshold, the Rubicon, and we are in uncharted waters.
Right.
I think that's a play for the international community, as well as internal problems in Iran. Of course, I think it's both at the same time, right? Because they want to consolidate power in Iran. Obviously, they have serious problems there in terms of possible unrest. So of course, they want to make sure that when there is a crisis, the population usually rallies behind the leader.
Even if it's a manufactured crisis.
Yeah, even if it's a manufactured crisis, and even if you have the opposition, of course, there is the opposition. But in terms of, their effectiveness, I would say that, most of the time it works in terms of rallying the population together.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes, I see many examples of that. Jakub, your view, we see this polarization, don't we? We see Iran, Russia and China almost coming together in various theatres across the world, right? So you've got Ukraine, of course, the invasion of Ukraine. You've got Russia's relationship with Belarus and Russia's support from China and Iran. How do you see this new move fitting into that puzzle? Is there a connection, in your opinion?
Of course, I think that from Polish point of view, we must perceive Iran as a Russia ally. And we could see yesterday that these attacks carried on Israel was a copy of Russian attacks on Ukraine, which is combined drone attacks and ballistic missile attacks and cruise missiles on the territory at one time. And we shouldn't forget that Russians, they are firing on Ukraine Iranians drones, Shaheds, which are renamed in Russia as Gerans, but this is the same device. So in this view, I think also Israel should react that one of the allies of Iran, which is enemy of Israel, is also Russia. And until now, Israel tried to not see what's going on in Ukraine.
Right.
It didn't provide military assistance to Ukraine at all, almost, I think. So it could be also a game changer.
Yeah, so it seems to be, I mean, the ripples seem to be spreading out, don't they? So what do you see is the game plan, if I can ask you, in terms of, is there coordination, between Russia and Iran in this particular event? But also, what's Iran's long-term objective, do you think? Because, I mean, clearly, they will get some kind of response from Israel. What are they trying to do here?
Well, there is some degree of coordination, that's for sure. Iranian media quite recently were discussing the possibility that this Israeli attack in Damascus, which was the primary reason for this retaliation, it was partly possible thanks to Russian inaction over Syrian airspace, providing Israelis with the possibility to strike on Iranian targets in Syria. And it was even going deeper, saying that someone is leaking some secret informations to Israelis because this attack in Damascus. By the way, it's not correct to say it was Iranian consulate in Damascus. There were premises rented by Iranian consulate in a private building. Part of the inhabitants of that building were Syrian civilians who were occupying upper floors, and the premises were primarily used for intelligence, high-ranking operatives, Iranian high-ranking operatives, for secret meetings and planning, coordination of action of Hamas in Gaza Strip, Hezbollah in Lebanon.
So this wasn't a diplomatic premises.
It didn't have this status of Iranian land, Iranian estate.
Right.
So this is one of major mistakes which are repeated worldwide. But it doesn't matter. Israelis were eliminating Iranian targets for decades.
Military targets.
Military target. General Qasem Soleimani,
yes.
the head of military intelligence, architect of Iranian conquer on of the Middle East in Iraq, in Syria, was killed with the same way. The directors of Iranian nuclear programs were executed in Tehran or in well-protected sites within Iran. So it never, the rules of engagement in this Cold War between Iran and Israel for years was that Israel can strike, and Iranians, they make a lot of outcry, a lot of noise in propaganda, in medias, but this mother of old battles, as it was usually described, it never materialized.
Yes.
So I have an impression that there is no, of course, the the deeper plan for Iran is to destroy Israel. That's what they state since the beginning of the creation of Islamic Republic in Iran. But I think that their operation in Gaza, this provocation which caused harsh reaction from and highly criticized reaction from Israel, it was at the end of the day we see that this is the Iranian failure. Hamas is more or less neutralized or heavily weakened in Gaza Strip, and Iranians just start to lose their face as the biggest bully in the region. So they had to show something to keep this
reinstate their status.
That they still can be dangerous, and they showed actually that this kind of barrage was something really unusual. It never happened before. Israeli also get their own credit for resisting, repelling this attack. So this is like win-win situation for a while. Both sides.
I mean, you saw the Israeli cabinet just now in one of the articles there. Win-win. I mean, is Israel now going to sit down and say, okay, fair enough, we killed your guys, you fired all these missiles at us, we stopped them, let's move on, business as usual. What do you think, Adam? Is there going to be a response from Israel, and if so, what?
Well, I think that first of all, hypothesizing, theorizing, it's a tricky business, right? Because of course, before this attack, there were some voices that said that was going to happen, but not the scale of it. So I think we can theorize as much as we want, and I think the cultural component here is important as well. The in terms of religion, in terms of the whole eschatological end times aspect. So yes, logically, you might say, well, they attacked, they responded, PR, right, and that's it. But there are many factors at play here, so we need to remember that in terms of things can miscalculation, as in with Ukraine, of course, and so on. We just don't have the full picture, right? So logically, yes, it seems that it's simple. And of course, Joe Biden said that he doesn't support the escalation. He doesn't want Israel to respond to this openly. But Israel is likely going to respond in some way because otherwise, in this region or this no response whatsoever would be perceived as a weakness,
as a sign of weakness. Absolutely.
So unfortunately, it's like with a bully, right? You need to show some kind of strength. The question is, how do you show strength without this spiraling out of control?
And see, that's the question.
That's the question.
With so many countries now involved, with Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis.
We don't know how the proxies are going to react. What's going to happen with the Houthis, and so on. So there are a lot of factors here. And of course, Russia could be, providing some kind of assistance here behind the scenes.
Well, this is another, I think, major issue which we haven't touched on. If you look at the Washington Post article over there, it talks about Iran edging close to weapons capability. And reading that, basically, there are experts who are saying that Iran could enrich uranium to the level required for production of nuclear bombs within a matter of 6 months. Now, Israel has always said that if and when Iran gets to that stage, they will destroy Iran's nuclear capability. Do you think that might be a possible reaction by Israel?
It's a hard question because it means a new war, which would be very severe for the region. So I don't know whether they would create their own bombs in such a short period, but I guess that another thing is whether they can carry out the same strike in the future as we saw yesterday, because now almost all drones and missiles were intercepted, but we don't know how it's going to be in the future. As we see, without such a help from allies, Ukraine cannot handle these attacks. and what's going on if Israel couldn't intercept all of the missiles, and the situation get worse for them. There would be more damage, more killings of civilian populations. That's also a factor of bringing war into the region.
Well, that's right, and it seems to be, you know, from what we've discussed so far, there seems to be a coordinated effort amongst, you know, these countries, Iran and Russia and China. Of course, there's, you know, China and Russia have nuclear weaponry. They could support Iran. And, plus, of course, the committed aim to destabilize the region by destruction of Israel. And what, as you said, Kuba, you know, they've kind of turned the opinion, world opinion, back in favor of Israel. We have a short clip, I believe, from the former chief of operations, Counterterrorism Mission Center, CIA. Let's see what he has to say, Mr. Andrew Boyd.
We can assume that there will be escalation. Again, this could be the lead element of a wider attack. We're focusing on these 100 drones, but in fact, this could be a lead element of a broader attack, including rockets and missiles into northern Israel from Lebanon, from other proxies, Shia proxies inside Iraq. One thing is for certain that the Israelis are prepared for this. U.S. Central Command, and has been noted, General Kurilla, the commander of Central Command, is in the area.
So U.S. Central Command is kind of involved. We're not sure exactly to what extent. We know that UK, US fighter jets have shot down some drones. Also, apparently Jordan. Jordanian Air Force planes have shot down some of the drones. So clearly there is an alignment happening here. One thing that some might find surprising is that Jordan, who has heavily criticized Israel's actions in Gaza, is now actually actively protecting Israeli civilians. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all those drones and missiles have to cross through Jordanian airspace. So if we were talking about sovereign country, they cannot tolerate hundreds of drones and missiles flowing over Amman and other places in Jordan. So that's the one thing. The other thing, the criticism of Israeli action in Gaza was partly forced by the scale and the brutality of Israeli response to Hamas attack, with casualties, high level of civilian casualties, and that was creating pressure on Arab leaders in the region to condemn Israeli actions. But we shouldn't forget what I've mentioned at the beginning, this Gaza war and Hamas attack on Israel was designed to break the alliance between Israel and Sunni Arab countries in the region. So they are happy to come back to this deal because it's profitable for both sides, and there is no mystery to anyone that Iranian influence in the region is against Saudi Arabia interest and
right.
broader Sunni Arab countries' interests, political interests, military interests, also economical interests. They were always more aligned with the U.S. than with Russia and China, apart of Syria. But this is a little bit different. And Syria is still in an Iranian bucket, I would say.
Right.
It's controlled by Tehran, by this mean or the other. So Jordanians just decided to do what they regarded as a right thing for them. And if we are talking about what Israel would do and what kind of retaliation for this retaliation
yes.
would be, it all depends on to what extent this allies' help was crucial to neutralize this attack. If Iron Dome, Israeli missile defense, was efficient in 80 or 90% of shots, it's still up to Benjamin Netanyahu and his domestic political goals to to make a decision what to do with Iran. But if half of those drones and missiles were shot down by Americans, Jordanians, Saudis, it means that those countries, they have a huge leverage on Iran, because if this kind of attack can be repeated, which is not very likely, but still, if it can be repeated, they have to count on allies' help, and they have to take their opinion under consideration.
Right, absolutely. So yes, so it does complicate the process substantially. Now, of course, former President Trump had something to say on the situation. I think we have a short clip which enlightens us as to what he said.
The weakness that we've shown is unbelievable, and it would not have happened if we were in office. You know that. They know that. Everybody knows that. But America prays for Israel. We send our absolute support to everyone in harm's way. This is an attack that would not have happened. We will return the world to peace through strength, and it'll happen very quickly. We'll revive American strength abroad, and we will restore American strength at home. We were respected 4 years ago all over the world. Today, we are considered a joke. It's not going to be for long. Believe me, it's not going to be for long.
So, Cuba. President Trump, perhaps not unsurprisingly, says it's all Biden's fault. Biden has been presenting the US as a weak country, and had he been in power, of course, this would never have happened. Your thoughts?
The thoughts are very clear and very simple. Trump and his close ally Mike Johnson is blocking a bill that provides military aid to Ukraine, and in one package should provide this aid to Ukraine and to Israel. And I think now this is the time to decide whether he wants to restore American credibility as a superpower and let this bill go, because I don't think that it's possible to pass new bill giving military assistance to Israel only because Democrats, they want to get it into one package.
They're connected, yeah.
So let's see what could happen in Congress in the upcoming days, and whether this bill on assistance to Ukraine and Israel would be passed. So,
yeah, well, I mean, Adam, your thoughts on the political context in which former President Trump is speaking. How do you think that's going down with the American public? Because it's quite a complex situation there as well, isn't it?
Yes, well, former President Trump, of course, he wants to restore American greatness in theory. It sounds great, but of course, in practice, as we know, it doesn't always turn out the way you hope, for this to happen. So, yes, it's true that when he was president, the conflict wasn't that severe. Like with North Korea, he managed to get some sort of consensus. The Middle East was more or less stable, but it doesn't change the fact that his unpredictability and his reluctance to help, Ukraine, even though he's not a politician now, officially anyway, but he's still, working behind the scenes too, and that's a major problem. And of course, his statements that he's going to end this war in 24 hours, ridiculous, preposterous statements, because of course, so he knows how to spin, he has the silver tongue, if you will. Unfortunately, that's not enough in the real world. We need real steps and not just talk, because if he had an opportunity to really, straighten this, as he calls it, the consequences would probably be unpredictable and potentially catastrophic, because he is very transactional, and yes, it works on one level, but he doesn't take into account a lot of factors that are just there, and they're unpredictable. So unfortunately, with the American public, they, of course, I think a lot of Americans feel that, the U.S. has lost its standing, obviously, when you compare it with the past, even with Reagan and so on. There is an obvious difference, unfortunately not for the better. So there is definitely this yearning for a better U.S., the U.S. that is back on stage.
On the world stage, yes.
Even among, the left, the right, I think that there's this desire. But of course, the results are what they are, right? In terms of Joe Biden, basically more isolationist. He is unwilling to help. He is. The statements don't really make sense in terms of Ukraine when you can't attack targets in Russia because they don't really know even why. They just say it, right? It makes no. There are so many contradictions that it just makes no sense, and it makes you wonder what's really going on here. So.
It certainly does that. Well, let's move on now to our next topic for this morning, and that is, of course, Ukraine. So the scale of destruction in Ukraine has been described as terrifying by energy giants in the country. As Russia's bloody onslaught progresses, Ukraine's allies are struggling to keep up with Kyiv's needs on the battlefield, and much of the pressure rests on the shoulders of the United States. And we have a short video that we'd like to share with you before we go back to our guests.
The war in Ukraine has been going on for over 2 years now. During this time, U.S. authorities have handed over approximately $133 billion worth of military, humanitarian, medical, and financial aid to Kyiv, and more is on the way.
And Ukraine's friends continue to come up with innovative solutions to make key new commitments to provide Ukraine with urgently needed capabilities.
In Eastern Europe, the United States' support is seen as crucial.
American aid is of critical importance to us. I still believe that we can get a positive vote in the United States. Unfortunately, we are hostages of the situation.
But it's not that easy. A $60 billion aid package for Ukraine has been stalled in the House of Representatives for several months now. Republicans are refusing to put it to a vote. In Ukraine, the move has spelled uncertainty. Some say that this is directly benefiting Putin himself. A shortage of munitions and supplies has led Ukraine to ration what it has left. At the same time, the remaining defenses are overwhelmed by constant Russian attacks, many of them aimed at power stations. Ukrainian troops are in possession of critical US-made and German defense missiles. But much more is needed if they are to fend off Putin's attacks.
So, Kuba, I'll start with you. I mean, the Russian onslaught is gaining more incentive, more power, if you like, more energy, and in reverse, Ukraine's situation is getting worse. Ukraine has been asking since the start of the war 2 years ago. For lots of military and, of course, other aid. And that's been slow in coming. Now, according to the South China Morning Post, they're saying that, according to a U.S. general, Ukraine will be outgunned by Russia 10-1 within weeks. What's your reading? Why is Ukraine in this position?
Well, this is a problem of Western alliance resistance toward aggressive Russia. This is the problem we have in this region for decades. When the Soviet Union was collapsing, our Western allies who were instrumental in helping to terminate communism in this part of the world, they couldn't come in terms with the idea that that Soviet Union can collapse, and now they cannot think that Russia can collapse. So they've lost an opportunity to end this war when Ukrainians took over Kherson and kicked out Russian troops on the other side of Dnipro River, and the Ukrainian government was asking for some more material to just cut off Crimea and just push them out of Ukraine territory.
Right.
It was never granted, and we are paying price for that. And Ukrainians are paying majority of that price, but we here in Central Europe as well, with our shaken sense of stability and security. So this is the major problem, and it wouldn't be fair to just point Trump and American Republicans as a main reason for that situation. We had also reluctance from Biden administration. We've seen Secretary of Defense who is saying that attacking Russian refineries is not legitimate military target, which is quite strange for someone who remembers how US were bombing German refineries during World War II, and no one was asking that question if it affects global fuel prices.
Right.
So this is one problem. The other problem are deep penetration of Western European allies by Russian propaganda, by Russian money, by Russian political influence, and years of failed Eastern policy of Germany or France. Now we are, we have this. We have to swallow the consequences of that. So this is the main problem, and if we can refer it a little bit to what we've been talking before about
yes.
the Middle East, I think it can be a game changer, because if we see Republicans as someone who is blocking help for Ukraine, now they've seen that their most precious ally in the world, which is Israel and always was for years, now they face the same threat as Ukraine. And we've seen some reports of possibility of opening this Speaker Johnson's refrigerator where the bill of aid for Ukraine is frozen. And they were just looking at a good excuse to convince hardcore Republicans who are blocking this bill. And Iranian attack to Israel, and as you said, those bills help for Israel, help for Ukraine, they are in the same package.
Right.
So seems like it can change hopefully in just few days.
Yeah, because the two are tied together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is more to that bill, isn't there? Kuba, I'll stay with you if I may. I'll ask you. Because the reason that the Republicans are holding it up is simply because they want more money spent on the border. Is that
Yes.
your reading as well? And yet the Democrats seem to be quite, they're digging their heels in and absolutely refusing to do that. So we hear about the Republican attitude, but we rarely hear about the Democratic response or reason.
Of course, the reasons are absolutely, from my point of view, internal politics, and as ex-President Trump said, he wants to make America respectable throughout the world. So with this attitude, it's of course impossible, because they must separate simply internal policy from the international politics, and
right.
without that, we will see decline of American influence throughout the world, because as we see, Ukraine can't count on American assistance. So what about Poland? So what about Baltic states that are also endangered by Russia?
Right, absolutely. I mean, this is the concern, isn't it? I mean, Adam, you were saying earlier that, Trump does have this way of making statements which very often shock, surprise, stun people. But he, today, in fact, I believe it was, or yesterday perhaps, did suggest, instead of donating weaponry to Ukraine, to actually providing them loans with which to buy such weaponry. Do you think that's a workable idea for Ukraine? And do you think it could happen quickly enough to stop what's going on right now?
Yeah, the question is whether it's not just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Because there are many people that say, this is just another tactic to stall and a red herring. In terms of what's going to happen on the ground, even if that was a reality, well, we would have to wait and see. But for now, it's just talk. right? At the moment, even if this was alone, it doesn't really materialize. It's just talk. So it seems that the people that say that this is a red herring, a smoke and mirrors tactic, basically, are right, unfortunately. There seems to be some kind of underlying reason that this aid is being withheld. And maybe it's just the border, maybe it's something else, I don't know. But there is some underlying reason. Maybe it's even ideological, unfortunately. Because we need to remember that even today, as was pointed out before, Russia is seen as this, romanticized, as this bad guy, sure, but they, have this good heart. And that's the problem. That's the problem, because there are a lot of people that have this mindset. They do not understand what Russia is. And that is the issue, because even if you try to explain, they will accuse you of being a propagandist, right?
Right.
They'll say you are in the wrong. They have no idea what Russia can do, because sometimes it's so hard to imagine for them that it just escapes their imagination, escapes their mind. And that's the problem, I think, that it's poisoned their minds, and that could be one of the main reasons, actually, not even political, not even money.
So mixing it up with the presidential elections to keep people...
Unfortunately, Russians have a lot of experience, as we know with brainwashing, with propaganda, more than 100 years.
Right.
And when you know what to look for, it seems childish, maybe cartoonish, but a lot of people, they don't know what to look for. They don't want to look for that. They have this image of Russia, which is false, and unfortunately deeply entrenched in their minds. And until it's gone, it could really have serious consequences for us all.
Well, absolutely. I mean, yes, I see you agreeing.
It's interesting, for example, President Putin is telling that Russia is not going to attack NATO, yes, but every day in everyday propaganda, I follow it very closely. The calls for attacking Berlin, Paris, Poland, to recreate the big empire. It's a normal thing, and their fake public opinion, because they don't have real public opinion, they have like propaganda public opinion. So all of it, it's controlled by the government. What people can say, what can you publish in the media, says absolutely different thing than President Putin says every day. And in my point of view, like nation is already get prepared or even prepared for any action in the West. I mean, Russian action, Russian aggressive action. So they don't have limits, and the West still has it. So we should see it in this light.
We should certainly see it in this light. And last question to you, if I may, Kuba. So we see the US, you mentioned, the policies and proposals in the refrigerator. We see them frozen. Is Europe doing enough to support Ukraine, and can it do more?
Of course, we are, as the European Union, we are one of the biggest economic powers in the world, and there are some, we are 20,000 more richer and more economically capable than Russia can ever be, despite what South China Morning Post is writing about their abilities. I mean, some years ago, it would be I could call South China Morning Post as a reliable newspaper from Hong Kong, but they are taken over by Chinese propaganda right now. So this is a different thing. So Europe could do much more, but it goes really slow. The same factor you have mentioned, those illusions about coming terms with Russia and have business as usual, as it used to be in heydays of Nord Stream 2. They are still present in the major European capitals. Of course, the public pressure is high and the political pressure is high. So Chancellor Scholz is making some amendments to his politics, but these but the pace of that is not
moving too slowly.
Sure.
Unfortunately, gentlemen, the clock has caught up with us. There was much more that we wanted to discuss, but of course it was overshadowed by Iran's attack on Israel. Thank you all very much for coming along on this Sunday morning, getting out of bed and sharing your insights with our audience. Have a good day. And that's all from us on Press Corner on this Sunday. Goodbye. Have a good day.